Thank you, Presiding Officer, and can I say how good it is to see the entire ministerial team here today for this session to ask the Scottish Government which of the portfolio questions taken in the Chamber on the 24th of April 2025 raise matters that fall within the specific responsibilities of the Cabinet Secretary for Education and Skills, as listed on the Scottish Government website, in light of reported concerns about her missing this session for reasons not related to her ministerial duties.
Cabinet Secretary Jenny Gilruth.
Presiding Officer, the written question as drafted cited the 25th of April 2025, which of course was a Friday, and the Scottish Parliament does not sit on a Friday. But all of the education and skills questions taken on Thursday, the 24th of April, were answered by a Minister from the Education and Skills portfolio.
Douglas Ross.
Sorry, that's a very specific question. There were issues in the Cabinet Secretary alone's portfolio on teachers who were experiencing physical violence and verbal abuse, vaping in schools and teachers stuck on temporary contracts. And if this Cabinet Secretary is going to be honest with this Chamber, she will say she was on the stump for SNP votes when she should have been here doing her job. So will Jenny Gilruth, not in her usual condescending way, give an apology to this Parliament for missing this session, but more importantly, an apology to our pupils, our parents and our teachers for the disrespect she showed by missing it?
Before I ask the Cabinet Secretary to rise to respond to that, I would just remind members of the requirement to treat each other in a courteous manner. Cabinet Secretary.
Presiding Officer, as set out in Rule 13.7 of the Parliament's Standing Orders, oral questions may be answered by any member of the Scottish Government or a junior minister. Now, Mr Ross had the opportunity today to raise any issue pertinent to the children and young people of Scotland. What a pity, although not surprising, that he chose not to do so.
Point of order, Douglas Ross.
Yes, here we go to the SNP members who don't want to see this.
Mr Ross, if you have a point of order, please now
I do have
proceed
a point
with
of order.
it. Thank you.
Presiding Officer, the question submitted was very specific, to ask the Cabinet Secretary which of the questions at the previous session, which she missed to campaign for SNP votes, she would have answered if she was here. Does the Cabinet Secretary either not know which questions she would have answered, or is she deliberately misleading this Parliament by not telling us?
I thank Mr Ross for his contribution. It's not clear to me that's a point of order because, of course, the Chair is not responsible for the substance of ministerial responses. And I would intend to leave that there because I'm sure the member is entirely aware of that fact. And with that, I would call, by way of a supplementary, Gordon MacDonald.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Does the Cabinet Secretary appreciate the hypocrisy of Douglas Ross questioning anyone's attendance at Parliament, given he previously ditched the Justice Committee to officiate a football match between Sporting Lisbon and Real Madrid, and missed a universal credit debate at Westminster to be at Barcelona via Olympiacos? And can she remind the Chamber the process by which parliamentary questions are answered?
Mr MacDonald, I think one recognises that most of that question had absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with the remit of the Cabinet Secretary, and I will not be suggesting that the Cabinet Secretary responds. I would hope that members might have some questions that they would wish to ask that do fall within the Cabinet Secretary's remit. This afternoon we have a supplementary. Pam Duncan-Clancy.
Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer. One matter in the Cabinet Secretary's portfolio that was raised in her absence on the 24th of April was on teachers stuck on temporary contracts. So can I ask the Cabinet Secretary two things? With 97% of people surveyed saying they believe a lack of permanent jobs in teaching is harming pupils, why on earth on her watch are there so many newly qualified teachers in a cycle of temporary contracts, leaving them in limbo and pupils facing a revolving door in staff? And secondly, can I ask the Cabinet Secretary, why was campaigning more important than this?
Cabinet Secretary.
Thank the member for her question. Of course, MSPs take decisions around where they are on a daily basis. I know, of course, her leader was not here earlier in the week for the assisted dying debate. Instead, he chose to be in Hamilton campaigning. Yeah. But to the substantive point the member asks in relation to funding for teacher permanence, which is an important issue, of course, the Scottish Government put forward a budget in which we uplifted the value provided to our local authorities for teacher numbers to £186.5 million, and we provided additionality by way of £29 million for additional support needs, and that was to support extra teaching posts, because we recognise there are challenges in that regard. And I have to observe, of course, that the Labour Party abstained on the Scottish Government's budget.
And brief supplementary, Craig Hoy.
Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer. What message does the Education Secretary think that playing truant from Parliament, because she believes she had something better to do, sends to the children she's imploring to attend our schools?
Cabinet Secretary.
I thank the member for his question. I would also have to point out, of course, that I sincerely missed Stephen Kerr's presence at the Education, Children and Young People's Committee on the evening of the 30th of April, where he was due to present his own amendments on the Education Bill. I'm sure that members will recall... I'm sure that members will recall that instead Mr Briggs spoke on behalf of Mr Kerr to answer any questions, much in the same way that ministers were able to represent the education portfolio.